Good morning, we are the fifth group and for today, we will be discussing about Acuña's second unit of his philosophical analysis on the theories of truth and your obligation as a critical thinker. To start with, now that we know how to identify and now that we know about knowledge claims and other knowledge statements, we can now proceed to the theories of truth. We have two types of theories of truth: the coherence theory of truth and the correspondence theory of truth. And between these two, the correspondence theory of truth is much more complicated because it stirs up a lot of philosophical controversies. So with that being said, we will therefore start with the simpler one, the coherence theory of truth. The coherence theory of truth. Coherence itself is a relational term, meaning when an idea exists, it must relate to a certain statement that it adheres to, that it addresses to. It must therefore go hand in hand so that it will be able to meet the standards and meet the requirements of being coherent. The coherence theory of truth consists of two philosophical categories, mainly the formal knowledge claim and the formal system. Like I have said a while ago, coherence is a relational term. Therefore, the formal knowledge claim along with the formal system should be coherent with each other. They must be mutualistically coherent and they should always agree with each other for it to be accepted as a coherence theory of truth. For the first one, the formal knowledge claim, these claims are constructed in an analytical statement. For example, equilateral triangles are equiangular triangles, or 5 plus 7 is equal to 12. On the other hand, formal systems include abstract ideas, mainly mathematics, logic, geometry, linguistics, and empirical systems. Now going back to our examples a while ago, like the first one, equilateral triangles are equiangular triangles. This knowledge claim is coherent with the formal system of geometry. On the other hand, our second example, 5 plus 7 is equal to 12, is coherent with the formal system of mathematics. We have some further examples here. In linguistic formal systems, predicates are contained within the subjects, meaning that the definition of the subject must cohere to how it is used in the language scheme that it plays in. Meaning, the predicates and the definition must always adhere and cohere with the context that it plays in. For example, freshmen are first-year college students. Now, if the stipulative definition of freshman is used in the context, in the claim that it is used in, then it is therefore coherent. We have here a much more ambiguous example for you to understand better. Pups are young foxes. Now in that sense, we know that it is true. However, it is ambiguous because we know for sure that young wolves are also called pups. So in that sense, it is quite ambiguous, but if we know that the context of the word pups coheres with the context that it plays in, then it is therefore coherent. If the definition of pups plays in the context of young foxes, then it is therefore coherent. Otherwise, it is not. Now, we have finished the coherence theory of truth, and now we will proceed with the correspondence theory of truth. Now, this theory is responsible for the numerous philosophical controversies that we have today, like I have said a while ago. And like the coherence theory of truth, correspondence theory of truth is also a relational term. Correspondence itself is relational. It also consists of two philosophical categories, the empirical knowledge claim and the theory of reality. Now we can notice that unlike in the coherence theory of truth, we use empirical knowledge claims instead of formal knowledge claims, and we use formal systems we use theories of reality instead of formal systems. Because in the correspondence theory of truth, we use this to relate claims to our everyday lives. And that is why we use empirical knowledge claims, because empirical knowledge claims are the claims that we can observe with our senses. Now, though it is relational, like the coherence theory, the difference lies in how it is used, like I have said a while ago. If you are going to use the coherence theory of truth in abstract ideas, although we can also use the coherence of truth in empirical systems, the correspondence theory of truth has a different use. Because the correspondence theory itself adheres to reality. For example, I have my phone in my pocket. Now we know that that example is an empirical claim. However, for it to become correspondent, we should first meet the requirements of the claim. I have my phone in my pocket. Now for this to be true, we know that we should have a phone and a pocket to start with. If either one of those will be absent, then the theory is not correspondent, because there's no reality that we have a phone if that phone is indeed absent, right? So going forward, we have the realist version of the correspondence theory of truth. This is the version that is used in our daily lives. It is the version which paved the way for primitive men to the contemporary period. It is also found in most evolved languages, and not only is it useful in identifying empirical claims, but also in evaluative claims as well, that we will be discussing later on. We have our first example. The books are thick. Now, also do take note that the examples that we are going over right now are still empirical claims. We will be discussing evaluative claims later on in the intersubjective consensus. Now, going back to the example, the books are thick. If the empirical claim is observed in the present, or anything is observed in the present, then it is correspondent to direct observation. Next example, he will have his annual dental checkup in May. Now, if the empirical claim is a prediction about the future, then we correspond to that by basing it on past events. We know that a future prediction is based on a regularity of past events. This is called future observation. To clarify, we know that from the example, we know that this person has his annual dental checkup yearly. And we know that since it's yearly, it's a fixed date. So his next dental checkup based on every other year in the past will be the same as that one in the future. So let's say, given in the example, if he will have his future if he will have his future checkup in May, we know that from past events it is also in May. So we therefore have a future observation based on past events. Now going to the next example, Ferdinand Marcos corrupted over $5 to $10 billion. Now if the empirical claim revolves around past events, then we correspond it through documents and eyewitnesses, or mainly those hard copies or other papers that can serve as evidence for our claim. Because if we were to blindly say that this knowledge claim is true and corresponded to something without any other proof, then it is not truth. In that sense, it is not a theory of truth because it is not truth. We don't have any basis and any other proof for it. Now lastly, 90% of the students experience mental stress from online classes. If the empirical claim revolves around a generalization of subjects, then it is correspondent to the sample population used in the claim. Any other population, as long as it was used in the claim, may it be a linguistic term like most, almost, or none, it still refers to that sample population. Now we will be going next about the intersubjective consensus, which will be discussed by my partner. Thank you.
Going on the verification by intersubjective consensus. So there are lots of claims made that seem to be true just because there are a lot of people who belong in a group who have these collective beliefs about certain values that are widely shared among its members. And this is what we call intersubjective consensus. So how do we verify these claims? By the use of the theories of truth. Consider the evaluative claim, stealing is wrong. This claim is a generalization of the intersubjective consensus of real people playing a language game while sharing a form of life. Let's say we, the people living in our society, we all agree that stealing is something that is not right because since then we are taught that taking something from other people without that person's permission or consent is wrong. And so if we saw someone stealing, all of us will automatically agree that what this person is doing is not right. And this is how intersubjective consensus walks in. If you accept the claim that stealing is wrong, you are in fact claiming that your evaluative judgment is supported by a strong intersubjective consensus because the gathering of intersubjective consensus is an empirical task, meaning that it is something that relies on practical experiences rather than theories. And it is the task of complying with the process of verification using the correspondence theory of truth. So the task is made easier if and when the judgment stealing is wrong corresponds with the value or moral system of the concerned public, meaning that an intersubjective consensus about moral and immoral behavior has already codified in the form of a moral rule or moral principles. So, a moral rule or principle is a generalization of the intersubjective consensus of people playing a language game and sharing a form of life. If an evaluative judgment that is an instantiation of a moral principle, this means that it has the backing of a strong intersubjective consensus. Another example, supposedly I claim that plagiarism is wrong. Do you think other people would disagree when I claim that plagiarism is good? Of course, no one, because if we accept the claim that plagiarism is wrong, then you should accept the prescription do not plagiarize is the correct and proper thing to do. Or otherwise, you would be guilty of dissonance or the lack of agreement. There is a dissonance between the truth and what people want to believe because there is an inconsistency between the beliefs one holds or between one's action and one's beliefs. So going back to the claim that plagiarism is wrong, there is a strong intersubjective consensus that if you accept the evaluative claim plagiarism is wrong, then you must also accept the prescription do not plagiarize is right, so that there is a consistency between your beliefs and the truth. The falsifying instance of the prescriptive claim is not a scholar who plagiarizes, but by establishing the rightness of the opposite evaluative claim, namely plagiarism is good. And you can establish the rightness of this evaluative claim only if you can master the required intersubjective consensus from a concerned public, for in this case, the academic community nationwide or even worldwide, to a universal audience to further strengthen this consensus. So now, in falsifying an instance of the prescriptive claim, never punish an innocent person or never torture a human being for fun. So in the former, the evaluative claim punishing an innocent person is good, and in the latter, torturing a human being for fun is good. So we need to find a strong intersubjective consensus concerning the two evaluative statements so that we can succeed in refuting the two prescriptions. Prescriptions are evaluative judgment asserting what is good, moral, virtuous, desirable, or just. Another example, if we accept the claim that premarital sex is wrong, then we should also accept the prescription to do not engage in premarital sex is right. However, this prescription can be disproved if we can offer an evaluative claim that premarital sex is good. The strength of an evaluative claim rests on the intersubjective consensus of the concerned public or audience. So there are two types of intersubjective consensus. First is the ontological or the consensus that focuses on the value of the nature of the act or behavior itself. So example, in the claim, total logging ban is good. If it is held that total logging ban is good in itself, and the consequences of the policy is unimportant. Then the second is the teleological. It is the consensus that focuses on the consequences of the act or behavior. So in our example, that total logging ban is good if it is held that a total logging ban is good only if the consequences of the ban result in beneficial consequences for the country or a specific area. So this means that the policy total logging ban is neither good nor bad. Only the consequences of this policy will determine whether the total logging ban is good or bad. But keep in mind that the best justification for legal or policy proposal is to demonstrate that the nature of the act is good and the consequences of the act are beneficial to the greater number. Lastly, if there are no negative consequences that would be anticipated, then the legal or policy proposal is good. Now, entering Module 5, which is your obligation as a critical thinker. As philosophy students, we have to commit to ourselves one obligation as a critical thinker, and that is to never accept the truth of any statement or belief unless there is adequate evidence for it. So this means that if ever we are presented with inadequate evidence in support of a belief, our only option is to either reject the belief or to suspend our judgment. We are encouraged to take a healthy amount of skepticism seriously in our life, that we should question everything that we are told to and not accept it just right away. This would be beneficial to us with the rest of our natural life. And in order to be faithful to our obligation as a critical thinker, we must be very clear about the following epistemic distinction, such as knowledge claims in the realm of the known, claims in the realm of the knowable, and claims in the realm of unknowable. So let's start with the known. These are the knowledge that are already proven with solid evidence. Today, the empirical sciences provide us with knowledge in the realm of the known. We know so much about ourselves, our immediate surroundings, the world we live in, and the universe, that it is known that we live here on Earth. We have bodies that have different systems, trees that contributes to our oxygen and for the betterment of the environment, and other known knowledge. Next is the knowable. So usually, these are the knowledge that is an extrapolation from the known. These are the knowledge that is being experimented and subjected to speculations. Like today, the sciences are still exploring the knowledge realm of the knowable. Example is the human cloning. Although the technology for cloning human beings is imminent because scientists have done it successfully on Dolly or the clone ship, the question about cloning human beings is a distinct possibility from the knowable to the known. Another example also is the origin of life on Earth. It is still on the knowable stage. So next is the unknowable, or the knowledge claim that is unprovable or no evidence that can be produced or support the claim. So one good example of this is the origin of our universe. Although there are lots of speculations how this happened or occur, like the Big Bang Theory, there is still no actual or tangible evidence to be demonstrated that it is as true or existing. This origin of the universe is bordering on the unknowable, but there is still hope that it could pass into the realm of the knowable. That's why there are lots of theories about how our universe began. So remember that when a knowledge claim is unprovable, this means that in principle, no evidence can be produced to support this claim, hence making the claim unknowable. Only when the knowledge claim is in the realm of the known or knowable, then it is provable. This means that evidence can be produced either in fact or in principle to support the truth or probability of the claim. When the evidence is provable in fact, it means that the evidence is readily available. So when the evidence is provable only in principle, it means that hypothetically, the evidence can be produced, though it cannot be produced in fact. Lastly is the unprovable. We have this distinction because not all knowledge claims that are assumed to be true are unprovable. A good example is the claims that there is heaven and hell, or the souls that arrives death is trapped in the cycle of reincarnation. The claim that there is heaven and hell, if taken as empirical claims, are unprovable. Is there any evidence readily available that there is really heaven or hell? Is there an actual person that could take us to this heaven or hell, show us what it looks like, and bring evidence that could be available for everyone else to see? The answer is no one. The claims are empirical. It is impossible to produce the required evidence to produce the claims to be true, or at least probable. And so, these claims are unknowable. Only claims in the realm of the known or knowable are provable. Therefore, the unknowable is unprovable, the unprovable is unknowable. And our obligation as a critical thinker is to immediately reject such unknowable claims. But, if they are taken as evaluative claims, then the required evidence is the strength of the intersubjective consensus of people playing a language game while sharing a form of life. What are the practical advantages of keeping these distinctions in our mind? 1. You will guard yourself against accepting a true rumors, chismes, gossips, and superstitions. So you will prevent yourself from falling into fake news. Number 2. You will not readily accept true statements or beliefs uttered by persons in authority. Just because these people have a position say it so, their information does not necessarily mean that it is true. There are lots of fallacies, and remember that one of them is appeal to authority. Number 3. You will accumulate beliefs and information founded on evidence. You'll be more critical and analytical in viewing different information. You'll be a fact checker. Number 4. No useless baggage occupying valuable space in your memory. Like, for example, astrology. I know that many people believe this and use it as their standards to categorize people. But is it true? Is it just? Is it acceptable to say that a person who has a sign of Gemini, he or she is already a bad person? Think about it. Lastly, number 5, you will be transformed into a different person because you are now a critical and independent thinker. As a critical thinker, accept the truth of the beliefs in the realm of the known, suspend judgment if the belief is in the realm of the knowable, and reject all beliefs in the realm of the unknowable. Always remember to never accept the truth of any statement or belief unless there is an adequate evidence for it. Let's all live a healthy life with a form of skepticism. Question everything that we are told to. And that is all for our report. Thank you!